Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Thursday, February 27th, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. This podcast covers the national champions. I'm going to be joined here in just a minute by the Dean, Bill Kurelic, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. Shocker. Talking a lot about offensive line. Tyler Bowen is out there offering many big young dudes, and we need to talk about it. A couple Floridians, guy in Texas we need to discuss, and we will do that. We will get to your questions as well. But first, Pat Murphy would roll over. He's probably sleeping in right now. If I did not talk about our sponsor for the show, Joy Mode, Say goodbye to weakness in the bedroom with Joy Mode Sexual Performance Booster, an all-natural supplement designed to enhance your performance. And it's not just about better sex, daily support of healthier blood vessels. It boosts heart health, enhances your athletic performance. Expertly formulated and backed by science, proven to improve function by 50% in just 60 days. Who doesn't want that? Simple, proven ingredients. Unlike prescription options that involve doctor visits and managing refills, Joy Mode is straightforward and an effective solution. Join the over 200,000 men who trust Joy Mode. If you're looking to take your game to the next level, visit tryjoymode.com, tryjoymode.com, and use code Bucknuts at checkout for 20% off single purchases and 30% off subscription orders. That's tryjoymode.com and use the code Bucknuts for multiple discounts. All right. Talk about a multiple that you get a discount on. Look at these guys. The freshly coiffed Dean, Bill Kurelic, and Mark Porter join us. Gentlemen, we've been talking a lot about the offensive line, largely because Tyler Bowen is on an offer tour. Should we make T-shirts? Considering it. He's been all over, Bill. He's starting to hit the hot spots. That's Florida, and that's Texas. I'd like to talk about Micah Smith, the Vero Beach offensive lineman, who, by the way, is the focus of Buckeye in the Sky, second edition this week. And then we're going to talk about a guy from Texas who was very, very impressive, and I'm having trouble pronouncing his name. I want to say Zaden Krempen, Bill. Does that sound right? From Prosper, Texas? I can pronounce Prosper. Right.
Okay. Zaden Krempen.
Zaden. That's my fault. I said Zane. Zaden.
But Zaden? I'm sure he could go by. I'm sure he's been called Zay before, too.
Yeah. Big dude with a great-looking mullet. So we'll talk about him. Speaking of Texans, Quinn Ewers traded with him, but he's looking good. All right. Let's talk about Micah Smith. Bill, this is a name that's been around for quite some time. He's approaching the out-of-state visit record for an offensive lineman. Please give us the background on Micah Smith, and then we will tease you with some video from the Grand Poobah.
Well, he is from Vero Beach, Florida, and if that sounds familiar to Ohio State fans, it wouldn't be surprising because TJ Tarvos Alford from the same high school, signed with Ohio State in December, and is at Ohio State right now. And just to digress, as Dan would say a little bit, I talked to the Vero Beach head coach not too long ago, a few days ago, and he said Tarvos TJ is loving it at Ohio State. So, like I said, he graduated early. He's already at Ohio State and going through the paces and everything, and loves it up at Ohio State, and a very happy camper. You always like to hear that, and he's a good one. Mark and I saw him at camp last summer, and I think we were both pretty impressed with him. Ohio State won out over a group of schools that were going for a late flip, most notably Miami, but Ohio State won out. So things are going well for TJ Alford. Now back to Micah Smith. And he's a 6'5.5" and 300+ pound kid that has the big offers, pretty much all of them out there. He actually but he had a top 6 in November. There was a little bit different. It was at that time, it was Ohio State, Oregon, Miami. Those are not too surprising. but then he also had UCLA in there, as well as Tennessee and South Carolina. Now, that top 6 has not necessarily stayed exactly the same now that we're into February, but it's similar. And Ohio State, I really think is probably better than his top 6, one of his top few choices. And looks like he'll probably get back in the spring, as well as an official visit. And as Dan mentioned, he's already been to Ohio State almost a half dozen times, which is a lot for a kid from the state of Florida that's only finishing up his junior season in high school.
Mark Porter, your thoughts on Micah Smith after getting a chance to look at him in a year where we discuss a lot of Ohio offensive linemen, kind of the first guy we've discussed in Florida. We've talked about Jackson Canwell and the town in Missouri he's from. That sounds silly. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Jackson Cantwell is one of my favorite. Every time I hear that name, I get excited. What we have here with Micah Smith is someone who kind of reminded me of maybe a Thayer Munford or a Wyatt Davis or something, one of these big, massive body kids. We got 4 clips of him in a row here out pulling in space, and it proves why you're recruiting this kid. He can run really well in space. He's a big athlete. He's absolutely obliterating these defensive backs. It's kind of fun to watch him do this. Pulling here, does a great job locating. And then I think he's a guy that he's a right tackle or could be headed inside. He might be an inside guard. You see here, I think when he gets on campus, his body can be reshaped. He looks maybe a little top heavy, big up top, if that makes any sense. And maybe he could lean out here. I mean, 335 pounds. He has a wide range of outcomes. Let's just put it that way. Like becoming a road grader guard. Look at the feet there to, the hook a guy or a zone block. Didn't see a lot of pass protection on his tape, and I don't know how much of this you're going to run before we give away the full premium video. But, yeah, there is a massive human being, and I wide range of outcomes is like the first thing that came to mind. Like lean out, get faster, quicker, more explosive, very possible with Coach Mariotti. Or does he blow up and get bigger and become really massive? Donovan Jackson or someone really the guy that plays for the Browns right now, I'm drawing a blank on his name, was just massive. I don't think he's going to
DeJuan Jones.
DeJuan Jones, 6'8". I don't think he's that big, but there's a couple clips where he's a dancing bear, like one of those circus bears. I mean, he can go in there and wrestle a bear, and he's got a pretty good shot to take him out.
Mark, nobody's as big as DeJuan Jones.
Yeah, I don't want to throw that name out, but a lot of these guys he's 6'5", which means he's been measured legitimately by 24/7. You see that in person, that's pretty massive. I mean, so that's the ilk he's coming from.
So Mr. Bucknuts has really good seats at the Ohio State games behind the Ohio State bench, probably 15, 20 rows up, maybe a little less than that, just perfect sight lines. But you can literally watch the sideline for reaction and stuff like that. When you see DeJuan Jones on the sideline standing next to another like future big-time NFL player, guy looks like an 8th grader. I'm not kidding. DeJuan Jones, there's big human beings, and then there's DeJuan Jones. There's big offensive linemen, and then there's DeJuan Jones. Like he gets his own category. What a monster of a human being.
Like Bill says, there's 5 stars and there's 5 stars. Yeah,
but I mean, in terms of size, I would say Micah Smith more to me is a traits guy where they look at that and see, man, we could probably, like you said, shave some of the bad weight off that and the weight program. He can run. And like I said, I could see him playing guard or right tackle. I don't think he's a left tackle. You know what I mean? There's just something about left tackles I got to see.
Yeah.
But, look, it's very common if you guys are following draft coverage, and Donovan Jackson's a good example. It's inverted a little bit. There's a lot of tackles that get kicked inside.
Now, when I said wide range of outcomes, that's why I was like, I can't rule that out. I don't know if he's going to draw. He was 315 in a previous, ranking. So maybe he gets back down to his 300-pound svelte body and his feet are really moving because he runs well. But, yeah, I think you're right, Dan. There's even a guard. He could be an elite guard, a first-round or second-round type guard with that type of size, once he's stronger and, sinks his butt a little more. He got away on my film. He was playing pad level a little bit high with some of these kids he was blocking, and it's because he can just manhandle them with the long arms.
Yeah, very impressive. And good to know that he's probably, I'm not saying he's an Ohio State lean, but they are definitely in the mix. All right, Bill, say the name again so I don't have to, and bring us back to Prosper, Texas.
Zaden, Zadan, Den, Krempen, Krempin.
Okay.
Really good football player and a really good young man from my interactions with him. In fact, I was sitting in my office yesterday, and all of a sudden I get a message from Zaden. Hey, Mr. Kurelic, just thought I'd give you a heads up. Just now scheduled my first visit to Ohio State. You always really appreciate those kids that do that.
Yes, you do.
And Zaden is a kid that did that. So he told me I'm going to be visiting Ohio State March 23rd, 25th, first time at Ohio State. And Ohio State actually offered him a scholarship back in October. So it was when Justin Fry was head coach. But Tyler Bowen is come in, and boom, we getting a visit, pretty quick. That's always a good sign. Now, he also has 4 official visits scheduled. He's got LSU first. He's got SMU second. He's got Texas third, and then that school up north fourth. That saves the spot. If he wants to take 5 visits, of course, he can take even more for Ohio State. I would not be at all surprised if he comes away from that visit in March impressed enough that he schedules a visit to Ohio State. And I really liked I've watched his video. I really like it. He's 6'5", although we list him at 6'4". I think he's a little bit bigger than that right now. 6'5", and he's not quite pushing 300 pounds, I don't believe yet. But you think of a kid 6'4", 6'5", maybe he is a guard, but Ohio State is recruiting him as a tackle. Not necessarily, they haven't told him left, right, I don't think, but they've told him tackle. And 2 guys that they have told you are a left tackle if you end up at Ohio State, Jackson Cantwell, shocker there, and Felix Ojo, not much of a shocker there either. But they have told Krempen tackle, and he's going to give Ohio State his first look, and I tend to think that's going to result in an official visit. We'll see.
All right, Mark, you had to see him for the first time this morning as we did the show outlook. Your thoughts off the hoof on Zaden Krempen.
Yeah, you can pull his tape up if you want. It's ready to go. Totally a different contrast in player to what we just watched. Leaner body, feet are different. And you can see there he's a finisher running his feet, but where
number 74.
Yeah, that's just film will point him out here. Here he's a left tackle. Definitely lighter than the last guy. I mean, he looks like he's 30, 40 pounds lighter, but he does it with a different way. This guy has more of a punch, more pop in his feet, a little more, how do I say it, stick-to-itness, where the other guy kind of laid on you and used his power like maybe in a phone booth to just push you out of it with pure strength and bench press. You're seeing a little more athletic way of doing this where he's running his feet. And Bill, like you said, he could be a left tackle with those type of feet. And again, with him, I'm going to say there's going to be a wide range of outcomes because how much weight does he put on when he comes in? And that would determine where he finally ends up. And, of course, the other players on the team, if he can't beat him out of tackle, he could probably slide into guard. I like both of these guys, but I've always been a guy that really likes the feet and the athlete at offensive line. This kid isn't Taylor Decker, but it comes from that school of thought of a Taylor Decker, that lighter guy that'll help you out in pass protection, which we do throw the ball quite a bit sometimes. And zone blocking is what these guys can do too.
Bill, you mentioned Jackson Cantwell, and he has announced some visits. He did not announce an official visit date to Ohio State, but he did mention them in his list. Kind of bring us back through that, and then your interpretation of that Dwayne Long style.
Yeah, his 5 visits set up. He has 5 official visits set right now. As mentioned, and I think most people who watch this podcast know, official visits are unlimited now. So it's not a big deal that, you didn't get one of the 5 official visits. You can schedule another official visit. He's got Miami, Missouri, Georgia, Michigan, and Oregon set. That's a pretty good list right there. In fact, that's a great list. The only one it's missing is the national champions, Ohio State. But Canwell has indicated that he wants to make an official visit, has wanted to make an official visit to Ohio State, and it's to be determined as to exactly when that will be. So I do tend to think that that visit will get set. He also has talked about getting back in March for an unofficial visit. So we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of where things are right now. And I don't really take it as he doesn't have an Ohio State visit set yet. So Ohio State is in 6th place. I don't take it that way. I think that as long as he makes the visit, which I think he's planning to do, I think Ohio State is going to battle for his services. Now, if I had to pick right now, I do that. If I had to predict feature a lot of times on Saturday morning, I would pick the field versus Ohio State for Jackson Cantwell.
All right, I'm going to read our ad here. We're not going to do any more on Jackson Cantwell because
I was going to say, do we dare take a peek at him right now?
We're not doing that every week now because we did this last time with David Sanders. We probably amped up his NIL package by a couple $100,000. So I don't want to be responsible for that anymore.
Very, very fair on that because we did.
But no, not that I wouldn't want to watch it. I watch it in my free time because I'm a nerd. But I don't want to be caught on the PR side of things. I do want to be caught on the PR side of things for Factor Meals. You can see those of you playing at home can see the scroll at the bottom. If you're ready to optimize your nutrition and you're a busy human being, Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating well easy, dietitian approved and ready to heat in 2 minutes. Heat and eat. Feel right, feel great, no matter what life throws at you. If you're one of those people who needs a certain type of food, 40 options across 8 dietary preferences, Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, breakfast, smoothies, grab-and-go snacks, more add-ons. They got it all. Eat smart with Factor. You get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast. Get 50% off plus free shipping. Factor Podcast at factormeals.com/factorpodcast. 50% off shipping on your first box. All right. Let's get to some questions here. I want to my guys, Neil and Buck Rational. I'll address the Mike McCarthy news at the end of the show so we don't bore those who aren't obsessed with the Dallas Cowboys. But I have a comment on that, of course. There was also some standard Micah offensive line questions here earlier that I could have figured we were getting. Landry Breed. Who else? And why aren't they ranked higher, Mark?
Justin Hodge.
Go with it.
Justin Hodge is the receiver for Menor. He's one of the top 3-4 receivers in Ohio. I think he is a blazing 40 time away from being the national prospect the other receivers we're recruiting are. So not that he's ranked low. He just has a little ways to go for an Ohio State offer. And Landry Breed's the offensive lineman. He is not as big as some of the guys we have watched today. He's more of an inside guy. Maybe he could even be a center guard prospect. I like him a lot. I think he's in the realm of an Ohio State offer. He's a top 5-6 offensive lineman in Ohio and in an excellent class of offensive linemen. I think, as we get into the summer camps, these are the guys we look at. And, we can't early offer everybody. We're Ohio State. We have a summer. It's like almost like no one wants to wait for summer camp. It seems like it's so far away. Like, can't we do all of our business now? But no, give the coaches time, and Landry Breed and guys like that will be certainly guys where we call camp kids.
This is key, man. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a time before Steve Sarkisian rebuilt them and several other coaches when Mac Brown had Texas on top of the world. And their thing in recruiting was they would literally have like 20 commitments before the start of their senior year. They would take all these juniors because Texas had the most talent at the time. You can argue California and Florida, of course. But they had so much interest and so many guys wanting to commit, they took a bunch of early commitments. And so, like Mark is saying with patience, they missed on so many guys because they went early. And the idea of striking while the iron is hot, they didn't let guys develop. They went like 5 years without getting a guy drafted in the first round. And it eventually led to their downfall.
First is not always right. And I know it's hard to see this flashy sophomore or Chris Henry as a freshman and say, let's pull the trigger. But as many times as you're right about a Chris Henry, you will be wrong, and you'll be backtracking, and you'll be apologizing to the high school head coach that I know we offered this kid early. And, there's a lot of other things that go into that. Like kids who get these early offers, do they have the same desire? And, once they find out they're going to make $100,000 their freshman year, are they really, focused on football as much as they are what they're going to do with, the fun times ahead?
The school that really started, I'm going to go pretty far back on this. The school that really started all this early commitment stuff was none other than the Penn State Nittany Lions quite a long time ago. They rounded up a class of, like Dan said, this was a long time ago, 20 commitments, I think, before the summer even got halfway through. And that kind of started the avalanche of early commitments. And I remember back in the day talking to college coaches, they didn't like that at all, but they felt like, well, if Penn State's going to round up all these, we got to do it too from coaches at other schools. And generally speaking, the earlier you go, the less accurate you are. You don't have as much information. But that kind of became the trend back because Penn State started it way back when. And it was pretty successful early on for Penn State when they first did that.
You'll be fooled by the early bloomer early on. The reclassified kid that's got a year on everybody, that's kind of a little more developed and can put on a pretty good show. So you worry about those. The question by Cam St. Prix, if you could pull it up, are there any concerns with players from the state going elsewhere? The Albert Hills and Sincere Johnsons. I want to answer this because I think the percentage of guys. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me read the question here.
Yep.
From Cam St. Prix. Are there any concerns with players from the state of Ohio committing elsewhere? Albert Hill, Sincere Johnson, et cetera, especially now that recruiting has shifted to more of a how much are you willing to pay?
So in the past, your kid goes to Florida, Texas, California. You want to go see him play. You're doing it in your living room, or it's going to cost you $1,000 to fly out there with your husband or whoever and get a hotel and spend the weekend out there. And that's just not sustainable for, a long time. With these NIL packages, they are building in the lawyers, the agents clauses where, hey, we want a package where for 8 weeks a year, airline tickets, 5-star hotels, meals. It's literally like a vacation for the family every weekend out to these places where they're probably going to the same place each weekend. So there's a very familiar vibe in the comfort of sending your kid farther away, knowing that, there's not a financial burden for you to go sit in the stands every week. In fact, it's almost like a 5-star vacation. We're going to see a percentage of Ohio kids going out of state growing. Mark my words. We don't know how this will work or how families will like it because the rest of the year you're not getting free rides out there, and it is an expense. But it's a new day and age, and that has never been presented to families before, and it's now on the table.
I'll tell you a little story about that too. Is that a number of years ago, somebody that very knowledgeable in the recruiting world, and tried to help Ohio State out. Advise them, don't recruit kids from a long distance away that don't have the financial means that their family can come see them play, because the chances of getting them are so low if their family don't have the financial means to go see their kid play because they want to do that and they're going to influence their kid. Kind of gave the advice to Ohio State that don't bother with those kids. And like Mark said now, those days are kind of gone because of the NIL.
I mean, the Sanchez's are going to have to come from Texas a lot to Ohio, and it's nice that they can now do that in this environment. I mean, so we are going to recruit nationally, and we are going to use this rule to our advantage. So I don't want to downplay that, but yeah, it used to be Ohioans, if they had an Ohio State offer and anything else equal to it across the country, I'd rather be, close to home and have my family at least come down and see me and have a meal with me.
There's no question that that's a big deal. There's just no question. And it's no longer, I don't think that's a huge issue for the Ohio State level guys anymore. I would think there's some kind, like you said, there's some kind of travel package built into that from the jump. There's no way they're going and sitting in these people's living room with a package that doesn't include them watching their kids play football.
I mean, what could the package cost a weekend? $2,000 to bring the family out times 10 games. What's that? 20, 30 in a $100,000 or $200,000 package. That's a small portion of the package, and it's a nice 5-star treatment to travel like that. So, and if you are a family that couldn't have afforded it in the past and you're traveling, first class and 5-star and, staying in nice hotels, it's like you get to play at Ohio State too, or wherever they're going.
We've got a little off-topic one here from Thomas Thompson. This is way off topic, but Bill's familiar with the academy in Branson and has produced several basketball players for the Buckeyes. Cantwell's about 30 miles north of Branson, Missouri. I don't know if that's Link Academy, maybe. I know there's one factory in Missouri for hoops. But Nixa, that's, like I said, Bauxite, Arkansas. I'm learning Tyler Bowen's cross-country tour has also been like a Where's Waldo geographic learn new towns thing, because I know for a fact we've never recruited anyone from Bauxite, Arkansas. Good gracious. I will say this. I watched, if you guys can do this too, on 24/7, Tom Loy interviewed Jackson recently. That's going to be an NIL deal. That is not, I mean, they have the Team Sanders has laid the tracks for that one. So if you become the number one guy at your spot and you're that coveted, first class or not, it'd be like coach or general admission. No, all first class. And I want the first row for the leg room, especially if my son's 6'7", but I digress. All right. Let's see if we have a few more questions otherwise we will call it a day. All right, here we go. William, do you think elite quarterbacks and wide receiver rooms deter stud running backs and offensive linemen from Ohio State? It seems to be the missing part of the offense. I'm not sure I agree with that, but Bill, your thoughts?
I think that running backs do look at Ohio State and realize that, they're not going to necessarily run the ball 30 times. But I don't know that running backs want to do that anymore, to be honest. Ohio State showed how to do it this year. Get two really good ones and don't beat them up, so to speak. They have more tread left on the tire for the NFL, and it's going to work out pretty well. Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins are both going to get picked pretty darn high. So I think that they look at Ohio State and realize that it's more of a balanced offense, so to speak. Henderson and Judkins got their carries, but they also Ohio State also, of course, was very effective throwing the ball. And I think that Ohio State can sell that. This is a good thing. And I think they do sell that as this is a good thing.
We kind of had the audition for it here this past year. I mean, Quinshon Judkins coming here, who was a guaranteed NFL main guy at Ole Miss. He came here, and I think Travion Henderson improved his draft stock over the course of the year. So looking back on it, like I said, the tandem running back approach is haute cuisine right now, or is the hot thing to do. So that's going to help Trey. Sometimes you got to just be lucky. The game has to evolve around you properly. And for Travion Henderson, his improved blocking, which I think was a concern about him, he stayed healthy the whole year pretty much and got to audition in front of everybody in that run. So I think he's good. I mean, there was some momentum for him to get picked at the back end of the first round. I don't think Henderson's getting out of the second round. And I would not be surprised to see Judkins go late second round either, by the way. All right, we got a couple more things to do here. All right, there's been some questions about Nathan Bernard. We had some chatter about him and Matt Patoski in yesterday's boarding house. Boy, Patoski is a big-time baseball recruit. Big time.
Shortstop.
I mean, he's the 16th rated player in the country at shortstop. By the way, that means you're going to get drafted in front of 16. Only pitchers and shortstops go up that high. So,
and I think he's a 90-mile-an-hour pitcher also,
And he's only 17. He's young. And if you see his face, that's not hard to know. He has one of the more baby faces. I mean, not that has anything to do with his on-field play, but I know, and this was in the boarding house yesterday. I'm not going to get the number exactly right. The signing bonus when you're the 16th player in the NFL in the Major League Baseball draft, and keep in mind, baseball, they'll pick you when you're 12. It's over $3 million. So I, in fact, saw an interview with A.J. Brown yesterday, the receiver for the Eagles, and they were asking him about college and struggling at college, and he's like, I got picked by the Padres in the 19th round, so I got a check before I went to college. It happens for some. You can only be so lucky. All right, Nathan Bernard, the quarterback, Mark, you've seen him recently.
Yeah, he was at a 7-on-7 this weekend. And back to Patoski, I've asked him personally, like, is it baseball or football? And it was about a year ago, and he said definitely football, and he told college coaches that. With what you just said, I don't think he knew what type of rating his draft prospect was going to be when he was saying that. At the time, he was just a college. I think he was almost committed to Missouri or something, like up by freshman year with baseball. So, that's where he's at now. We could lose him as a quarterback. That he's not – Patoski, I heard, is not playing 7-on-7 right now because he's, I think, doing baseball. Smart decision. He might be able to moonlight a little bit here in a tournament, but Nathan Bernard, on the other hand, is playing on a couple different 7-on-7 teams. He plays on a Florida team, and he travels around. But he moonlights, and there was a tournament in Ashland, so he had a group of maybe all-stars from his hometown or his local high school players are playing with them. Super nice. I tell you what, the vapor trail on that ball when he lets go of it. We're standing at the 50, if you know anything about 7-on-7, and he just pelts balls into the end zone from the 50-yard line, like just ripping down. I mean, he threw more 50-50 balls, and I mean, he really has a fun style of play. Hats off to him for, being humble enough to go play in a local tournament and not big timing everyone and saying, I'm a 4-star, I don't have to do this. Super nice kid. In fact, you see here, he took a second to take a picture with my son after. They actually played each other. Really fun game for my son to be involved with him. Shameless plug for my son. But yeah, for an Ohio State offer, the new regime, which is now Brian Hartline's offense, Chip Kelly's been up there to see him throw. What will Brian Hartline think about him? And of course, Ryan Day, will his opinion change from what we know over Kelly? But he has to be on the radar. I would put him in that camp mix. He's come a long way with his delivery. I know he's been working with Coach Brad Melander up in Cleveland, and they're trying to tighten that up and make it pretty more, how do I say it, a little more pretty. When these big guys really unrip it, he almost has like a Jameis Winston feel or a Byron Leftwich feel. Where, I mean, I'm surprised he hasn't broken the fingers of his receivers. Yeah, he really can sling it. So yeah, keep him on the board. I liked Patoski a lot too. I think he's a Julian Sayin clone. I think we have two good ones in Ohio. I think this quarterback recruiting is tricky, but we'll see if we can pull one of them.
Give you a quick update on Patoski. It's all going to go to be determined this summer, because baseball-wise, this summer, and he has told me this, is going to be huge for him. He'll go out on the baseball circuit this summer, and depending on how things go on that circuit, he said I could be drafted anywhere from the first round to the 10th round.
It's not going to be the 10th round.
It won't be, but I'm telling you, he's
I hear you.
He that's what he said. He said it's not going to be. He's not going to go that low. And by the way, he is going to go as a shortstop. He is a pitcher, and he does have a pretty good fastball, but that's not what they're going to draft him for. It's going to be as a shortstop. And if things go well, he's going to go that high in the draft, and he'll sign pro. There's no doubt in my mind. Why wouldn't you? Like you said, Dan, first, you're in the first round, let alone first 16 picks. That money's just too good to pass up. But he flat out knows that this summer is going to tell the tale of, does he sign baseball, or does he do a combination baseball, football, and go the college route? So
I'm going to take this and run with it, and then I'll answer that Mike McCarthy question, and we'll get out of here. Hopefully I can do it in less than 5 minutes, so I don't have to go into premium time. You guys all get sent a bill. Baseball America. For those of you who are not baseball geeks, and I'm not a baseball geek, but Baseball America is a publication that for baseball geeks, you could geek out like a mug for weeks on this thing. They rank your entire system. So, the Major League Baseball teams have 3 or 4 teams under them. They rank all those, and then they rank all prospects in the country. So Baseball America came out with their ranking recently, and it's kind of a tent post announcement, and he was 16th, like we said. So there's no 10th round. If you're at 16th and you're a shortstop and you have that pedigree, Mark mentioned that he's not playing 7-on-7 football. He plays at Moeller. He's getting good enough coaching during the football season that he really doesn't, I don't believe he needs 7-on-7. In fact, I'd like him to rest a little bit, and I don't want him talking to any other coaches. If I got the best coaches at Moeller, why do I want some other donk telling him some dumb stuff to do with his delivery? So there's that.
Dan, I want to expand on it. You're so right about the 7-on-7 is a developmental tool for quarterbacks and receivers. Now, at the upper end where Patoski and Bernard are at, it's more about the glitz and glam and being on TV and the OT7 and Pylon series and ESPN Network and NFL channel playing your games. That's fun if you're a 17, 18-year-old kid. But for all the other guys, you're right. It's strictly development. And at programs like the top 50 programs in Ohio, the talent you have at practice prepares you. The defense you see every day at practice prepares you. My kid at Canfield needs to go and play in some of these to maybe see different competition, different eyeballs. Yeah, you can take smaller school kids and put them in with elite athletes from a Division I school and see how it measures up. And there's a lot of kids that are going to get. This is the first class, and thank you to Coach Day for helping get this 7-on-7 going, because these young quarterbacks and receivers
in Ohio, you mean?
In Ohio, yep. They're on the ground floor, right. And I have a son that's on the ground floor. I will personally be able to say in 3 years, how did it help him grow? And as a 15U player right now, there should be no cameras on these guys. It's all about learning and processing and the speed of the game, and the glitz and glam will come later if you take this developmental stage and make the most of it.
I will say too, I'm a big baseball guy. One thing as far as Patoski to keep in mind a little bit, if you look at the MLB draft, and I watched it closely because the Cleveland Indians, Guardians, they're always the Indians to me.
I'll have you guys know we have a pre-show meeting every day. We do the show. Bill tries to get Indians talk on every show, and I've had to kibosh it, going on 700 times. Go ahead, Dean.
Well, they had the number 1 pick in the draft this year, and actually, I believe the Reds had number 2. I think that was right, or 3. But anyway, if you look at the guys that were drafted this year, past year in MLB draft, almost all of them, the high kids, the very top kids, played college. They were drafted out of college. It's kind of migrating a little bit towards that because the college kids are a little more ready. Travis Bazzana, the first kid picked by the Cleveland Indians, he may be in Cleveland at the end of this year because he's been in college and he's a little bit older. If not, he's going to be in Cleveland at the latest next year. You pick a kid out of high school, he's not going to be playing Major League Baseball the very next season out of high school.
Keep this in mind too. We've seen this before. Also, this is important to note. You could be a high school player, sign with, let's say, okay, hypothetically, Patoski gets drafted by the San Diego Padres with the 16th pick. He could sign with the Padres and still go play football at Ohio State. He just couldn't be on scholarship because his financial status is such that he'd have to pay his own way. By the way, if you make $3 million a year at 18, you can afford to go to college. This is not that uncommon. Who remembers the running rebels of UNLV? Greg Anthony. Remember that name, the point guard? He was not on scholarship. He had a business selling T-shirts, and he made so much money as a student, he had to pay his own way. Okay? It can happen. But here's the classic example. Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray was going to be a baseball player. I think he started at Texas Tech or Texas A&M. I can't remember. He started somewhere goofy. But he signed, and he was like the top 5 baseball pick. And he went to college with everybody thinking he was going to baseball. He did not switch to football until he dominated and ended up going to be the number 1 pick. But he got a monster signing bonus. And then he was able to go to play football, and it worked out for him. So it's not, Buck Rational's talking about John Elway used this as a bartering tool ever. It's not like basketball where you couldn't do both or something like that. You can do both. Guys do this all the time. Russell Wilson did this, I think. I think Russell Wilson was drafted and used to go in the spring to play baseball. So this does happen on a Marv agrees. Seriously. If I could go back in time and help my guy Marv out, good Lord, that was one of the more frustrating things ever. That guy, don't get me started. All right, we're going to finish with this, the Mike McCarthy thing. There was this vote by the players on how good your coach is. You don't want to finish first in that. You should not like your football coach. The reason they put McCarthy up at the front is you don't make anybody practice. There's all these veteran days off, and the Cowboys take great care of you with you got your video system and stuff and the greatest food ever. And it's not like the Bengals where you show up at training camp and they're like, do you want cable? It costs $18. They don't do that. That's why he's gone. We need Parcells back where people are fearing for their life every time they get on there. And I don't think every sport should be like that. But football, man, you got to have some appropriate fear like you do of your dad. You know what I mean? Your coach, you should have a fear of the foot going somewhere it shouldn't. The other stuff, fine. Football's like a small army, man. So Mike McCarthy, good riddance. Go ahead.
I think that thinking where if you have a coach like Mike McCarthy and he has a ping pong table in the locker room, the next coach gets rid of the ping pong table.
Well, it's always the
or if you don't have a ping pong table and you're losing, the next coach comes in, brings in the ping pong table, loosens it up. I think
very quickly. Here's why
contrast each other when you change coaches sometimes.
Here's why I like a tough coach in football and a developed one. And I've seen this with Bill Parcells, and this applies to almost anything. If you have a great football coach and everybody believes in him, let's say everybody's on a 100% effort scale, that 15% of you questioning the coach all the time, that goes away. People just do it. It's replaced by fear. Okay? You don't want them questioning the coach. You want them fearing him. So if every time someone tells you to do something, you just do it, and there's not 5% of everybody thinking, I don't know about this, you get a more direct path towards the ball carrier, if that makes sense. So I am not a player's coach guy when it comes to football. I said this before. John Gruden wakes up every day at 3:17 a.m. without an alarm clock. I don't want my son to do that. I don't want Bill and Mark to do that. I'd be very happy if my football coach, I'm paying millions of dollars to do it when time is of the essence. All right, 42 minutes. That's 2:30 of free content. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Have a good one.